Iron gates guard the perimeter of the Huntington Country Club, an enclave strictly reserved for Long Island's White Anglo-Saxon Protestant elite. In 1914, Otto Kahn, a German-born Jewish financier worth millions, sought entry to these exact grounds. His application faced swift, absolute rejection by the board. The denial ignited a specific, calculated architectural retaliation. Blueprints spread across drafting tables outline an unprecedented residential fortress. The elite architectural firm of Delano and Aldrich received Kahn's commission with a mandate for overwhelming scale. Designing 127 rooms across 109,000 square feet required rigid precision. The plans dictated a structure second only to the Biltmore estate in absolute size, designed specifically to dominate the local skyline. Steam shovels tear into the earth at Cold Spring Harbor, altering the natural topography. Kahn purchased 428 acres and ordered the construction of an artificial hill. This elevation ensured his new estate would physically loom over the very country club that denied him membership. Hundreds of laborers worked daily to shift the terrain before a single stone was laid. Steel and concrete formed the skeleton of the chateau, an industrial core hidden beneath a French Renaissance exterior. To protect against the fire that destroyed his previous New Jersey home, Kahn demanded completely fireproof construction. The structural framing consumed thousands of tons of steel, driving the total project cost toward an estimated $11 million. The fortress took shape. Wrought iron in gold leaf marked the boundary of Otto Kahn's completed domain. By 1919, the entry gates stood ready to receive visitors, standing far grander than any local club's entrance. The hardware alone required meticulous artisan labor. These barriers signaled a new center of gravity on Long Island, operating entirely on Kahn's terms. Imported French limestone stretches across a facade exceeding 400 feet in length. The slate mansard roof caps a structure demanding constant, intensive upkeep. This monumental exterior served as a deliberate display of financial supremacy, impossible for the neighboring old money families to ignore. The house functioned as a weapon of visible status. Railroad financial ledgers dominate the heavy mahogany desk of the estate's owner. As a senior partner at Kuhn, Loeb & Company, Kahn reorganized the American railroad system from this chair. His operational control extended across the continent, generating the immense capital required to sustain the 428-acre property. The quiet room anchored a vast financial empire. A sweeping horseshoe staircase dominates the cavernous entrance hall, pulling inspiration directly from the Château de Fontainebleau. Staff in formal livery stand rigidly on the black and white marble floor, trained to manage a relentless schedule of arrivals. The spatial volume was engineered to intimidate, forcing guests to immediately acknowledge the wealth of their host upon crossing the threshold. 30 covers rest on white damask under the glow of crystal chandeliers. The formal dining room required a dedicated staff to manage the Sheffield silver and Sèvres porcelain for each multi-course service. Kahn hosted royalty, politicians, and Hollywood executives at this 20-foot table. The opulence matched the finest hotels in Europe, firmly contained within a private residence. Floor-to-ceiling carved oak shelving houses thousands of leather-bound volumes. The two-story library provided a quiet, intellectual retreat for the Kahn family and their guests. Careful cataloging maintained the extensive collection of literature and historical texts. Beyond the social warfare of the era, the room functioned as a genuine repository of culture and quiet study. A 15-foot Duparquet cast-iron stove anchors the glazed-tile kitchen complex. Producing meals for over 100 daily residents required military-level logistics. The head chef commanded a brigade of cooks, managing deliveries of meat, produce, and imported goods to sustain the estate's massive consumption. The culinary infrastructure rivaled commercial luxury liners. Reinforced steel doors protect floor-to-ceiling shelves lined with serving pieces. The silver vault held hundreds of pounds of precious metal, demanding daily attention from specialized staff. Polishing the tarnished punch bowls and candelabra required hours of continuous manual labor. The sheer volume of silver served as another metric of Kahn's calculated domestic dominance. Pine tables filled the unadorned basement dining hall, stripping away the luxury of the upper floors. Over 120 staff members required 3 meals a day to keep Oheka functioning. Maids, footmen, and laborers operated on strict schedules, invisible to the guests above. The estate relied entirely on this unseen, highly regulated workforce. Twin riveted steel boilers consumed tons of rough anthracite coal in the subterranean levels. Stokers worked in extreme heat and coal dust to generate the steam necessary to heat 127 rooms. The fuel consumption was staggering, requiring constant deliveries via the estate's private infrastructure. This industrial heart pumped life into the massive chateau. A brass stock ticker feeds real-time market data directly into the Long Island countryside. Kahn required instantaneous connection to Wall Street to manage his international investments. Dedicated telegraph operators monitored the machines, ensuring the financier never lost touch with market fluctuations. The estate functioned as a fully operational financial command center. Turquoise and gold mosaics lined the basin of the Roman-style indoor pool. Enclosed within French limestone walls and heated year-round, the pavilion offered guests an exclusive leisure environment. The water reflects the diffused light from the massive skylight above. Maintaining the pristine condition of the indoor aquatic facility required constant, specialized engineering. Dark mahogany paneling absorbs the light around deep Chesterfield leather sofas. The smoking room provided a heavily masculine environment for post-dinner negotiations in brandy. Expensive cigars and liquor flowed freely, facilitating private discussions among Kahn's influential circle. The architecture specifically encouraged hushed, confidential exchanges among the era's power brokers. Curved iron trusses support the glass roof of the towering conservatory. Head gardeners managed an artificial climate, cultivating 10-foot Kentia palms and delicate orchids year-round. The humidity and temperature controls demanded constant monitoring to keep the exotic species alive through harsh New York winters. The structure brought controlled nature indoors. Gold leaf covers the Rococo plasterwork above a polished Steinway grand piano. As a primary benefactor of the Metropolitan Opera, Kahn utilized this acoustically refined room for private performances. Singers and musicians entertained guests in an environment designed to replicate European concert halls. The space solidified Kahn's reputation as a supreme patron of the arts. A massive carved mahogany table sits under the focused light of brass fixtures. The billiard room offered informal recreation, with ivory balls striking across the green fell late into the evening. The dark oak wainscoting and heavy shadows provided a relaxed contrast to the severe formality of the main dining areas. Carved walnut anchors the king-sized bed in the financier's private quarters. Valets prepared stiff collars and tailored suits daily, managing Kahn's meticulous public image. The sheer scale of the room, marked by tall east-facing windows and an Aubusson carpet, reflected the occupant's status. Every morning began with precise, heavily staffed routines. Veined Carrara marble covers the colossal master bathroom, centered on a freestanding cast-iron tub. Nickel-plated fixtures and heated towel racks provided absolute modern comfort for the 1920s. Maids managed the water temperature and array of silver grooming tools. The sterile, ultra-luxurious environment represented the peak of residential plumbing technology. Hand-painted silk wallpaper lines the walls of Addie Kahn's feminine retreat. A gilded Louis XV vanity holds crystal atomizers and silver-backed brushes. Ladies' maids assisted with the complex afternoon and evening dress changes required by 1920s high society. The room served as the staging ground for the family's meticulous social presentation. Pale grey paneling surrounds an 18th-century antique canopy bed in the French suite. Oheka boasted dozens of such meticulously appointed guest rooms, requiring a vast inventory of silk curtains and fine linens. Maids unpacked leather steamer trunks for arriving visitors, ensuring every garment was pressed. The hospitality rivaled any luxury hotel in Manhattan. A vaulted plaster ceiling stretches over a corridor exceeding 100 feet in length. Night watchmen patrolled these vast wooden floors, punching leather clock keys to verify their rounds. The sheer distance between the mahogany guest doors emphasized the isolating scale of the mansion. At night, the quiet amplified the enormous dimensions of the architecture. Floor-to-ceiling wooden shelving holds hundreds of perfectly folded white damask tablecloths. Laundry maids constantly inventoried the massive stock of Egyptian cotton sheets and embroidered pillowcases required for the 127 rooms. Maintaining the pristine condition of these textiles demanded a ceaseless cycle of washing, pressing, and cataloging. The closet functioned as the estate's textile vault. Utilitarian oak racks hold rows of muddy riding boots and polished Oxfords near the staff entrance. Boot boys worked in harsh morning light, using stiff brushes and black polish to maintain the footwear of both the family and guests. This dirty, physical labor remained entirely separated from the clean elegance of the main floors. Elaborate wrought iron balustrades spiraled down toward the checkerboard marble floor. Housemaids kneeled on these steps, scrubbing the imported stone by hand. The dizzying vertical drop highlights the Château de Fontainebleau inspiration, while also exposing the intense physical labor required to keep the grand architectural gestures pristine. Heavy gilt-framed oil paintings line the crimson silk walls of the gallery corridor. Kahn amassed a formidable collection of Dutch Golden Age portraits and Renaissance landscapes, displaying them openly for guests. The careful positioning of the canvases allowed diffused light to illuminate the brushwork without damaging the pigment. The corridor operated as a private museum. Zinc-covered counters and deep soapstone sinks equipped the dedicated floristry room. Servants processed massive bundles of roses and lilies cut directly from the estate's greenhouses. Filling the tall glass vases in silver aprons required hours of daily work to ensure fresh blooms in every public room. The floral displays projected continuous, vibrant life. Cast-iron dumbbells and a wooden rowing machine set on varnished hardwood floors. The private gymnasium allowed Kahn and his guests to exercise under the supervision of dedicated instructors. The equipment, featuring leather straps and steel hardware, represented the forefront of 1930s physical culture. Health and fitness were integrated directly into the residential layout. Custom glass cabinets display rows of expensive putty and Holland double-barreled shotguns. Gamekeepers maintained the intricately engraved steel and polished walnut stocks, applying gun oil regularly. The armory equipped guests for hunting excursions on the sprawling 428-acre grounds. The dark oak paneling underscored the serious, lethal nature of the collection. Pale celadone green walls and white plaster floral swags defined the French rococo drawing room. Society women gathered on silk brocade chairs for tea and petit fours. The delicate marquetry tables and soft lighting created an intentionally feminine space, standing in stark contrast to the heavy mahogany of the smoking room. Plain pine steps form the steep, narrow back staircase used strictly by the staff. Footmen navigated these tight turns carrying heavy silver trays, ensuring prompt service without ever appearing in the main corridors. The gloss-brown paint and lack of carpeting reflect the purely functional, unadorned reality of the worker's environment. A wine stain marks the white damask cloth next to a Sèvres porcelain plate. Butlers moved silently to clear the remnants of carved duck and crystal goblets left by departed guests. The flickering candlelight cast sharp shadows over the debris of extreme luxury, capturing the immediate aftermath of a highly orchestrated dinner service. Rows of identical tailored charcoal and navy suits hang inside mahogany wardrobes. The leather valet stand holds freshly pressed shirts and gold pocket watches, ready for selection. Kahn surveyed his appearance in the tall mirror, utilizing these precise garments as armor for the daily financial battles in Manhattan. The wardrobe was a highly calculated arsenal. Exposed copper pipes run along the low brick ceilings of the subterranean service network. Night watchmen carrying kerosene lanterns inspected locked iron doors, guarding the estate's supplies. Wooden carts loaded with empty milk bottles highlight the massive daily logistics required to feed the chateau. The labyrinth connected all functional elements out of sight. Heavy wooden steamer trunks bearing fading Cunard line tags lined the utilitarian storage racks. Estate porters hauled crocodile leather valises onto wheeled handcarts, managing the constant flow of transatlantic travel gear. The dust in the air emphasizes the sheer volume of baggage required by the Kahn family and their wealthy, highly mobile guests. Chintz curtains and light oak paneling surround the circular mahogany breakfast table. In 1934, Addie Kahn sits in morning dress, her coffee untouched next to the Wall Street Journal. The bright, informal room stands in sharp contrast to the sudden, somber reality of Otto Kahn's death. The era of the great financier has ended. A fountain pen rests on half-written estate stationery atop the carved oak desk. Following Kahn's passing, executors began the massive task of sorting through the financial ledgers and legal documents left behind. The heavy late-afternoon shadows reflect the sudden halt of activity. The control center of the 428-acre empire is permanently silenced. Burlap-wrapped boxwood shrubs await planting between newly constructed limestone balustrades. The Olmsted brothers' firm orchestrated the massive earth-moving required to install the French formal gardens. Landscape architects mapped the terrain while laborers dug precise trenches for the geometric parterres. The project forcefully bent the wild Long Island topography into rigid, symmetrical order. Geometric boxwood parterres surround a central limestone fountain spraying water in a high arc. By 1924, the gardens achieved maturity, offering crushed white marble paths for afternoon strolls. The brilliant midday sun creates sharp contrasts against the precise landscaping. The design directly emulated the grounds of Versailles, projecting absolute control over nature. Steam-powered tractors pulled grading blades across a muddy expanse of felled oak trees. Denied entry to local clubs, Kahn hired architect Seth Rayner to carve a private 18-hole golf course directly out of the woodlands. The brutal industrial reshaping leveled hills in filled valleys. Kahn simply built what the WASP establishment withheld. A pristine emerald fairway stretches toward the imposing silhouette of the chateau. Kahn swings a wooden-shafted hickory club on his exclusive domain. The closely mown grass in perfect conditions rival any championship course in America, yet remained entirely private. It stands as a monumental, 18-hole testament to the power of unlimited capital against social exclusion. A Duesenberg Model A and a Rolls-Royce Phantom park on the immaculate gravel courtyard. Chauffeurs in leather boots and peaked caps stand ready to assist arriving guests. The electric glow from the massive arched windows illuminates the polished fenders. The courtyard served as a grand stage for the display of modern automotive wealth. A 7-piece jazz band drives the rhythm inside the gilded grand ballroom. Flappers in sequin chemise dresses and men in tuxedos pack the parquet floor under a vibrating baccarat crystal chandelier. The harsh incandescent light captures a chaotic, unrestrained display of roaring 20s decadence. Oheka hosted the cultural vanguard, actively ignoring conservative social norms. A waiter pours a Jeroboam of French champagne over a four-tiered pyramid of crystal coupes. The overflowing liquid soaks into the mahogany table, reflecting the stark flash of a photographer's bulb. Discarded cigarettes and spilled alcohol mark the extreme excess of Kahn's parties. The visual chaos rejects the quiet restraint demanded by traditional high society. Enrico Caruso stands beside the ebony Steinway grand piano, singing into the velvet-draped music room. Sheet music in half-finished wine clutter the instrument. The warm light from ornate brass sconces highlights the intense theatricality of the private performance. Kahn brought the world's greatest operatic talent directly into his home, cementing his status as a cultural kingmaker. Charlie Chaplin balances on the marble landing of the grand staircase, performing a pantomime for the formally dressed crowd below. A battered bowler hat rests on the wrought iron banister. The massive chandelier spotlights the comedian, turning the architectural masterpiece into a private theater. Hollywood royalty gathered here, far removed from the restrictive country clubs. A silver letter opener lies untouched next to a stack of sealed envelopes bearing the crest of the Huntington Country Club. Kahn's hand rests heavily on the desk, discarding the belated overtures. Years after his initial rejection, the local elite finally attempted to extend invitations. Backed by $11 million of stone and steel, Kahn ignored them. 30 pristine place settings of Sheffield silver and Sèvres porcelain sit completely untouched. Otto and Addie Kahn wait in silence at the far end of the 20-foot table. Despite an $11 million investment in residential supremacy, the local aristocracy frequently orchestrated coordinated boycotts of Oheka's formal dinners. The sprawling void of empty chairs proved that capital could not purchase immediate social integration. A brass telescope points deliberately down toward the Huntington Country Club in the distant valley. Kahn engineered his 428-acre estate on Cold Spring Harbor's highest elevation specifically to achieve this visual dominance. Estate managers utilized the vantage point to survey the exact enclave that had rejected the financier's membership application years prior. Geography itself was weaponized to establish an inescapable hierarchy. Thousands of dust-covered bottles filled the iron racks of a subterranean, vaulted brick vault. During the era of Prohibition, Oheka maintained an immense, illegal inventory of French Bordeaux and smuggled Scotch whiskey. Hidden beneath the chateau, staff inspected vintage labels by lantern light, securing the massive quantities of alcohol required for Kahn's unchecked Hollywood parties. Federal laws held little authority below the ground of the private fortress. A Curtiss JN-4 biplane rests on a designated grassy runway carved directly into the estate grounds. To bypass the crowded Long Island roads, Kahn constructed a private airstrip allowing prominent guests to arrive by air. Pilots assisted passengers carrying heavy leather steamer trunks directly onto the property, ensuring total isolation from the public transit systems. Aviation offered another layer of exclusivity for the extremely wealthy. Wooden bushel baskets overflow with apples collected from mature rows of private orchards. Agricultural workers utilized horse-drawn wagons to transport the massive autumn harvest. Oheka operated as a fully self-sustaining agricultural enterprise, producing sufficient fruit, vegetables, and dairy to feed both the family and a staff exceeding 100 individuals. The estate functioned entirely independent of local supply chains. Wrought iron arches support the glass panes of a specialized, high-humidity fruit conservatory. Horticulturists carefully manage the temperature to cultivate exotic species, including mature pineapple plants and lemon trees, entirely out of season. This intense agricultural engineering provided fresh citrus for Kahn's formal dinners during the freezing New York winters. Absolute climate control yielded agricultural luxuries unavailable to the general public. Dozens of fabric patch cords connect across a dark oak Western electric switchboard. Managing communications across 127 rooms demanded a dedicated, private telephone exchange. Operators worked continuously to route calls between staff departments, guest suites, and Kahn's direct lines to Wall Street financial markets. Information flowed through a centralized hub before ever leaving the property. Two massive cast-iron direct current dynamos spin heavily within the estate's subterranean generator room. Oheka severed reliance on the public electrical grid by engineering its own independent power plant. Engineers lubricated the copper coils and monitored massive slate control panels to ensure the uninterrupted illumination of the massive chateau above. Total autonomy required heavy industrial machinery hidden beneath the formal gardens. Varnished yellow pine lines the immaculate corridors of the estate's private equestrian facility. Stable boys groom thoroughbred horses secured by crossties outside heavy oak stall doors. Kahn maintained an extensive collection of finely tooled leather saddles and brass bridles to equip his guests for riding across the 428-acre property. The pristine conditions mirrored the exacting standards maintained within the main residence. Massive blocks of clear ice sit stacked on wooden pallets inside a zinc-lined refrigeration chamber. Before modern electric freezers, workers utilized heavy steel picks to chip 100-pound blocks harvested during winter. This brutal, freezing environment preserved the highly perishable luxury meats and imported seafood required for Kahn's relentless event schedule. Maintaining culinary superiority demanded constant, freezing physical labor. Steam rises from copper boiling vats and industrial cast-iron wringer machines driven by leather belts. Laundresses fed heavy, dripping Egyptian cotton bedsheets into the mechanical presses under oppressive heat. The sheer volume of daily linens generated by dozens of guest suites necessitated a commercial-scale facility operating continuously on the estate grounds. The relentless pursuit of cleanliness extracted a heavy physical toll. A carbon arc projector cuts a bright beam through the smoky air of a maroon velvet cinema. Kahn installed a plush, private screening room to view 35mm celluloid films before public release. Projectionists threaded the heavy reels for Hollywood executives and actors who preferred Oheka's absolute privacy over the scrutiny of public theaters. Entertainment was strictly controlled and consumed behind locked doors. A yellow Western Union telegram rests on the mahogany desk amid a chaotic tangle of ticker tape. In October 1929, the global financial architecture fractured. Kahn, heavily invested in the collapsing markets, received the devastating data directly through his private communication lines. The sudden evaporation of capital struck the very core of his power. The economic shockwave easily penetrated the thick limestone walls. Thick leather ledgers and unpaid invoices pile high on the scarred oak desk of the estate manager. The onset of the Great Depression forced an immediate, brutal contraction of Oheka's operating budget. Managers scrutinized every column of numbers, tasked with cutting the immense daily expenditures required to heat, light, and staff the 109,000-square-foot fortress. The mathematics of survival replaced the mathematics of excess. Battered cardboard suitcases sit on the wet gravel outside the austere rear service entrance. The economic collapse triggered mass dismissals among the estate's domestic workforce. Footmen and housemaids, stripped of their uniforms, stood in the cold wearing cheap civilian coats, permanently severed from the immense economy that had sustained them. The gates closed behind the very hands that built the luxury. Heady canvas dust sheets completely shroud the French furniture and grand piano inside the silent ballroom. To conserve resources, large sections of the chateau were systematically shut down. A solitary housemaid pushed a dry mop across the vast parquet floor, maintaining a sterile emptiness where massive jazz orchestras had performed just years prior. The architecture remained, but the life had been drained away. Wild vines and erratic branches aggressively choked the once pristine geometric boxwood maze. Reduced landscaping crews proved insufficient to control the 428 acres. Weeds consumed the crushed stone paths, and rusted iron benches sat abandoned as nature began its relentless, immediate reclamation of the meticulously engineered French formal gardens. Without constant capital, order rapidly surrendered to the wild. An aging Otto Kahn leans on a silver-tipped walking stick across slightly overgrown grass. The shuttered windows of the colossal chateau loom behind the frail financier. Stripped of his vast wealth and social momentum, Kahn walked the isolated grounds alone, surrounded by the overwhelming physical scale of his own creation. The monumental house outlasted the energy of the man who built it. Wooden packing crates filled with rolled tapestries and porcelain sit on the Aubusson carpet. Art handlers systematically dismantled the luxurious guest suites, packing away the gilded French clocks and antique beds. The economic reality dictated the liquidation of assets, leaving faded outlines on the silk wallpaper where heavy paintings had hung. The vast collection of European history was crated and prepared for auction. 5 remaining servants eat a sparse meal of stew under a single, dim light bulb. The cavernous basement dining hall, engineered to feed over 100 workers, stood overwhelmingly empty. The aging butler and skeletal crew consumed cheap rations in heavy shadow, maintaining a fraction of the estate's former operational capacity. The vast infrastructure amplified the silence of the severe downsizing. Stacks of leather-bound books tied with heady twine clutter the floor of the 2-story library. Following Otto Kahn's death in 1934, lawyers initiated the complete cataloging and packing of the estate. The carved oak bookshelves were systematically emptied, exposing bare wood as executors prepared the massive literary collection for immediate dispersal. The intellectual core of the chateau was boxed and removed. A real estate agent stands tiny and insignificant on the sprawling black and white marble floor. The removal of the antique tapestries and carved oak tables stripped the grand entrance hall of all scale and warmth. Devoid of furniture, the cavernous limestone space revealed its terrifying, hollow architectural volume. The building transitioned from a private home into a massive, unsellable liability. A heavy brass padlock and rusted iron chains seal the monumental wrought iron entrance gates. Weeds pushed through the pristine gravel as the Kahn family officially abandoned the Cold Spring Harbor property. The gold leaf details faded into silhouette against the evening sky, locking away $11 million of architectural ambition. The fortress designed to exclude the elite was now completely closed to everyone. 3 massive New York City garbage trucks park haphazardly across the rutted, muddy courtyard. In 1939, the estate was sold to the Sanitation Workers Union for use as a retreat. Burly men in heavy coats smoked on the limestone steps, completely upending the aristocratic exclusivity the architecture was designed to project. Working-class refuse vehicles now occupied the exact spaces built for Rolls-Royces. Rows of cheap, iron-framed military cots filled the once gilded expanse of the grand ballroom. Sanitation workers and rough undershirts played cards under harsh, bare incandescent bulbs strung on cheap wire. The rococo plasterwork began to chip as the delicate room absorbed the heavy, utilitarian reality of a high-density communal dormitory. Practical necessity rapidly erased the remaining traces of jazz-age delicacy. Scratched folding wooden tables replaced the crystal and mahogany of the formal dining room. Workers in denim overalls received rations of beans and bread on chipped tin plates. The massive crystal chandeliers have been stripped away, leaving bare wires hanging above the scuffed parquet floors as the room functioned as a basic cafeteria. Survival calories replaced multi-course culinary theater. Glowing vacuum tubes and Morse code telegraph keys cover heavy steel tables inside the former study. During World War II, Oheka served as a merchant marine training facility. Cadets in Navy uniforms operated complex radio transmitters against mahogany paneling carelessly painted over an institutional military green, tracking wartime logistics in Kahn's old sanctuary. The financial command center shifted its focus to global military survival. Rigid columns of teenage cadets march in perfect synchronization across an asphalt parade ground. The Eastern Military Academy purchased the property, paving over the grand gravel courtyard. Drill instructors shouted orders from the limestone steps, enforcing strict discipline and uniformity against the backdrop of the French Renaissance chateau. Geometric military formations replaced the organic flow of high society. Cheap plywood boards roughly cover the intricate carved oak bookshelves of the majestic library. The military academy installed simple wooden desks and rolling slate chalkboards to convert the space into a functional classroom. Teachers wrote mathematical equations while the heavy boots of teenage cadets deeply scuffed the historic wooden floors. Institutional efficiency demanded the active defacement of the original architecture. Aggressive red and black spray-painted graffiti covers the exquisite limestone walls of the landing. After the military academy bankrupted, the estate suffered complete abandonment. Teenage vandals easily breached the perimeter, smashing windows and leaving thick layers of trash and broken plaster across the black and white marble floor of the grand staircase. The unprotected fortress immediately fell to systemic, unchecked vandalism. Jagged black holes remain where dozens of tall arched windows have been entirely smashed out. The southern facade stood covered in massive graffiti tags in black soot. Trespassers threw rocks through the remaining glass, while rusted shopping carts and rotting cardboard accumulated on the overgrown stone terraces of the former billionaire's estate. Without a caretaker, the 109,000-square-foot mansion rotted in plain sight. A heavy iron crowbar pries a carved marble slab away from the grand fireplace mantel. Thieves in military surplus jackets operated by hush flashlight, actively stripping the hollowed-out entrance hall of its valuable materials. Brass door hinges, copper piping, and architectural limestone were systematically ripped from the walls and sold for scrap. The house was physically dismantled from the inside out. Massive, roaring flames engulfed the carved oak bookshelves of the two-story library. Arsonists targeted the abandoned structure, using gasoline from a plastic jerrycan to ignite the dry, historic wood. Firefighters blasted heavy streams of water into the blazing room, battling intense heat as the plaster ceiling cracked and failed. Over 100 separate fires were intentionally set during the dark years. A collapsed roof exposes the sky above the charred, smoking cinders of the library. Arson investigators analyzed the melted gasoline cans resting in puddles of dirty water on the ruined oak floor. The fire reduced the intricate woodwork to blackened charcoal, representing a catastrophic, irreversible loss of original architectural fabric. The structural integrity of the chateau was pushed to the absolute limit. Dark, murky rainwater fills the basin of the once luxurious Roman swimming pool. Smashed glass from the skylight allowed the elements to destroy the imported limestone walls, now covered in thick, dark green mold. Local teenagers smoked near the stagnant water, surrounded by discarded car tires and illegally dumped construction debris. The pinnacle of indoor leisure devolved into a toxic, hazardous swamp. Jagged wrought iron ribs stand exposed against the sky after every glass pane was shattered. Nature violently reclaimed the massive conservatory. Aggressive vines of ivy and thorny brambles completely swallowed the interior floor, burying rusted wheelbarrows and forcing local explorers to use heavy sticks to navigate the dense, untamed jungle inside the walls. The climate-controlled oasis was entirely surrendered to the local flora. A crude fire burns inside a rusted steel oil drum directly on the wooden floor. Homeless squatters stripped the rich walnut paneling off the walls of Otto Kahn's private study to use as firewood. Surrounded by filthy mattresses and empty tin cans, occupants huddled around the flames within the desecrated financial sanctuary. The nerve center of a railroad empire was reduced to basic survival shelter. A dark blue Cadillac parks on tall weeds pushing through the cracked asphalt of the ruined courtyard. In 1984, developer Derry Melius purchased the devastated property for $1.5 million. Standing before the boarded-up windows and soot-stained limestone, he calculated the logistics required to resurrect the largest private residence in the state of New York. A singular private vision stepped in to halt the total structural collapse. 3-foot-high piles of fallen plaster and charred wood blocked the center of the marble floor. Melius and his contractors unrolled the original Delano and Aldrich architectural blueprints over the debris. Navigating the sheer, overwhelming volume of shattered brick and timber required a complete reassessment of modern restoration techniques in massive capital deployment. Rebuilding Kahn's dream required clearing thousands of tons of nightmare. Modern steel scaffolding wraps entirely around the massive, steep mansard roof of the chateau. Roofers utilized heavy yellow debris chutes to clear the rot before nailing thousands of brand-new, dark gray Vermont slate tiles into place. Securing the building envelope against the elements was the critical first step in the $40 million restoration project. The massive fortress was finally made watertight after years of exposure. Acetylene torches throw bright blue sparks against the damaged wrought iron balustrade of the grand staircase. Ironworkers carefully brazed newly forged black iron scrolls into the historic railing, replacing sections stolen by looters. The marble steps, protected by heavy cardboard, served as an active industrial workshop to piece together the shattered Fontainebleau-inspired design. Artisanal metalwork slowly reversed a decade of brutal vandalism. A massive matrix of wooden scaffold platforms touches the ceiling of the grand ballroom. Master plasterers utilized silicone rubber molds to perfectly recreate the destroyed floral swags. Covered in white dust, they hand-sculpted fresh rosettes, painstakingly matching the intricate Rococo geometry that had been lost to water damage and neglect. The delicate architectural skin was grafted back onto the brick skeleton. White string lines defined the precise geometric patterns across freshly turned, dark brown soil. Landscape workers cleared the overgrown jungle, exposing the original limestone retaining walls. They planted hundreds of young green boxwood shrubs in exact, calculated rows, forcing the wild Long Island terrain back into the strict, symmetrical order designed by Olmsted. Mathematical precision reclaimed the earth from decades of wild overgrowth. Massive sections of newly carved, unstained pale oak lean against the bare plaster walls. Master carpenters referenced detailed shop drawings to completely rebuild the fire-destroyed two-story library. Using circular saws and wooden mallets, they replicated the intricate pilasters and heavy shelving, generating thick construction dust in the pursuit of historical accuracy. Fresh timber erased the charred, black scars of the 1980 arson. A massive yellow dump truck pours tons of pristine white crushed limestone onto the flattened dirt. Construction foremen directed the removal of the military-era asphalt, actively restoring the acoustics and aesthetics of the 1920s arrival sequence. The heavy machinery generated thick clouds of white dust, burying the scars of the Academy parade ground. The grand gravel stage was reset for modern luxury vehicles. A heavy steel winch slowly hoists a massive, 24-arm crystal chandelier toward the cream ceiling. Electricians carefully guided the 6-foot-wide reproduction fixture into the formal dining room. Thousands of pear-shaped drop crystal pendants caught the harsh glare of industrial halogen work lights, replacing the original lighting system stripped away during the Sanitation Union era. Brilliant, cascading light finally returned to the massive dining space. An antique restorer stretches bright green wool felt tightly across a massive mahogany billiard table. The dark oak wainscoting gleamed with fresh polish as the recreational room returned to its original elegance. The meticulous installation of the playing surface utilizing staple guns and wooden blocks completed the resurrection of the masculine retreat. The sharp snap of ivory balls would soon echo again. An interior decorator carefully smooths padded pale gold silk damask against the bedroom walls. Otto Kahn's former personal quarters underwent a complete transformation into a modern luxury hotel suite. Specialized fabric adhesives and heavy shears were utilized to ensure flawless application of the expensive textiles, elevating the space beyond its historic comfort levels. The private sanctum was upgraded to meet contemporary hospitality standards. A 10-burner stainless steel Garland gas range dominates the center of the white-tiled historic kitchen. While the original glazed subway tiles remained, the culinary infrastructure was entirely replaced to support high-volume luxury catering. Sous chefs operated modern food processors and commercial ovens, engineering a facility capable of serving hundreds of guests simultaneously with flawless efficiency. The engine room of the estate was supercharged with modern technology. A master painter uses a tiny artist's brush to apply 24-karat gold leaf flakes. The monumental wrought iron entrance gates were sandblasted, primed, and coated in fresh gloss black paint. The meticulous reapplication of the gold detailing onto the iron spears marked the final exterior touch, signaling that the fortress was fully restored. The golden threshold of Oheka Castle was ready to open once more. Crystal-clear turquoise water fills the massive basin of the restored Roman indoor swimming pool. Overcoming decades of toxic mold, engineers repaired the imported French limestone in geometric mosaic tiles, returning the pavilion to its 1920s operational standard. Modern teak lounge chairs line the pristine deck beneath the frosted glass skylight. The aquatic facility functions once again as a premier leisure environment. A white silk wedding dress rests against the French grey paneled walls of a premier bridal suite. Hotel housekeepers now maintain the king-sized mahogany beds and Egyptian cotton linens once reserved for Kahn's private guests. The room serves as a high-end preparation space for contemporary events, securing the estate's financial viability. Modern romance underwrites the preservation of the historic architecture. Thousands of imported white roses cover a massive floral archway positioned directly within the geometric boxwood hedges. Floral designers coordinate logistics across the crushed marble paths to execute large-scale modern weddings on the Olmsted-designed formal gardens. The brilliant midday sun casts shock shadows over hundreds of aligned wooden chairs. The carefully engineered landscape now serves as a lucrative commercial backdrop. Silver charger plates and crystal wine glasses gleam under the restored crystal chandeliers of the formal dining room. Waiters pour vintage champagne for modern corporate guests, effectively erasing the memory of the room's decades-long abandonment. The 20-foot tables operate with the same high-end efficiency Otto Kahn originally demanded. Capital flows back into the chateau through aggressive luxury hospitality. A silver laptop rests on a heavy oak reading table alongside antique leather volumes. Hotel guests utilize the completely rebuilt two-story library, enjoying the pale oak woodwork meticulously carved to replace the 1980 arson damage. The quiet, intellectual atmosphere mimics Kahn's original design, updated with modern digital connectivity. The room bridges the gap between early 20th century study and contemporary remote work. A modern electric golf cart stands ready on the closely mown fairway beneath the southern facade of Oheka Castle. Golfers utilize titanium clubs on the exact 18-hole course Seth Rayner designed specifically to counter Kahn's rejection by local country clubs. The manicured green grass reflects rigorous daily maintenance. The grounds endure as a permanent physical counter-offensive against exclusion. A multi-screen computer setup occupies the sleek glass desk inside the historic walnut-paneled study. Gary Melius manages the 109,000-square-foot hotel operation from the exact room where Kahn once commanded his railroad empire. The integration of modern telecommunications equipment against the preserved antique wood panels highlights the estate's new business model. The Executive Command Center remains fully operational. Modern LED uplighting washes the Rococo plaster walls in pale purple as a wedding reception fills the grand ballroom. A newlywed couple dances to amplified music under the historic chandeliers, surrounded by gilded mirrors reflecting the crowded parquet floor. This diverse, high-energy event completely shatters the restrictive social parameters of the 1920s elite. Kahn's fortress now thrives on total inclusion. A Rolls-Royce Phantom and a Ferrari park precisely on the pristine white gravel of the arrival courtyard. Valets manage the flow of exotic vehicles, recreating the automotive spectacle of the Jazz Age with contemporary hyper-luxury machines. Warm light spills from the chateau doors, illuminating the polished modern paintwork. The monumental limestone entrance continues to attract the highest tiers of global wealth. Tall cherry blossom branches center the expansive black and white marble floor of the grand entrance hall. Receptionists manage guest folios near discreet brass luggage carts, executing a modern luxury arrival sequence that honors the scale of the Fontainebleau-inspired staircase. The architectural volume immediately establishes the property's premium status. The space dictates a precise, elevated standard of service. Crisp white linen covers modern dining tables beneath the dark green iron trusses of the restored conservatory. Patrons photograph artisan salads surrounded by mature Kentia palms, occupying a space that had completely surrendered to wild brambles during the 1980s. The humid, bright environment relies on highly upgraded, invisible climate control systems. Modern culinary operations flourish inside the historic glasshouse. A cinematic drone captures the massive, symmetrical footprint of the fully restored French chateau from above. The slate roof and pale limestone walls dominate the Long Island hilltop, towering over the rigidly perfect geometric parterres of the formal gardens. This aerial perspective emphasizes the sheer $11 million scale of the architectural retaliation. The estate visually commands the surrounding geography. A bright orange gas-powered hedge trimmer rests near a large bag of fresh boxwood clippings. Groundskeepers execute relentless daily labor using modern electric and gas equipment to maintain the sharp geometric lines of the formal sunken gardens. Controlling the sprawling 428-acre landscape demands constant, aggressive intervention against nature. The perfection is heavily manufactured and continuously defended. A modern Yamaha concert grand piano commands the center of the Gilded music room. Pianists perform beneath newly applied gold leaf, utilizing the precise acoustic engineering originally designed for Enrico Caruso. Dimmable LED sconces replicate the warm glow of candlelight against the Rococo plasterwork. The room sustains its legacy as an elite, specialized environment for musical performance. A commercial 20-quart stand mixer processes white meringue inside the highly sterile, stainless steel pastry kitchen. Pastry chefs utilize fine steel tweezers and edible gold leaf to construct massive, 5-tier modern wedding cakes. The bright, daylight-balanced LED lighting ensures perfect color accuracy for the microscopic culinary detail work. The industrial food production matches the massive scale of the property. A modern digital camera captures a bride positioned on the sweeping wrought iron grand staircase. Photographers leverage the diffused midday light from the massive skylight and the geometric precision of the checkerboard marble floor to produce high-fashion editorial images. The architectural masterpiece functions today as a highly lucrative commercial backdrop. The limestone walls readily translate into modern visual currency. Large crystal wine tasting glasses sit on a reclaimed wood table inside the subterranean brick vault. Sommeliers pour premium Napa Valley vintages from modern decanters, operating within the exact space Kahn utilized as an illegal Prohibition-era liquor stash. Hidden LED lighting illuminates the sleek black metal racks holding thousands of bottles. The underground cavern embraces a new era of regulated luxury. Weather-resistant modular sofas furnish a sun-drenched corner of the glass and iron conservatory. Hotel guests read and utilize wireless headphones surrounded by the strict grid pattern of shadows cast by the 1919 iron mullions. The integration of contemporary outdoor furniture transforms the historic agricultural structure into a premium relaxation zone. The architecture continuously adapts to modern standards of high-end leisure. Tall silver candelabra line the crisp white tables of the fully restored, temporarily silent formal dining room. Event managers conduct final visual inspections using digital tablets before the arrival of 200 guests. The massive crystal chandeliers illuminate a flawless, symmetrical perfection identical to Kahn's rigorous standards. The room waits, fully loaded, for the imminent chaos of modern celebration. Warm white architectural LED lighting dramatically illuminates the imposing French limestone facade against the pitch-black sky. Security guards patrol the glowing perimeter equipped with heavy-duty flashlights, protecting the fully restored, 109,000 square foot investment. The bright, golden uplighting highlights every carved detail on the steep slate roofs. The monumental house stands fully operational, refusing to fade into history. A silver fountain pen crosses out a name in a Moroccan red leather membership ledger. In 1915, the secretaries of the Huntington Country Club wielded extreme social authority, methodically denying entry to individuals based entirely on ethnic background. The heavy paper recorded the strict parameters of the White Anglo-Saxon Protestant elite. This specific rejection triggered a massive architectural response. A gold pocket watch chain hangs above a heavy green leather Kuhn Loeb & Company checkbook. Otto Kahn mobilized his vast liquid capital to finance an estate that would permanently alter the Long Island landscape. The black ink flowing from his pen authorized expenditures that ultimately exceeded $11 million. Financial leverage served as his primary tool against social isolation. Chisel marks cover a massive, rough-hewn block of imported French limestone sinking into the thick mud. Stonemasons wearing heavy leather boots utilized iron crowbars to maneuver the imported materials across the Cold Spring Harbor construction site. The sheer weight of the stone required immense physical force and complex logistical networks. Every block represented a tangible display of acquired power. A master gilder presses a delicate square of 24-karat gold leaf onto an iron rosette. The intricate, black-painted wrought iron entrance gates receive meticulous artisanal attention, projecting extreme wealth before a guest even reached the driveway. The blinding reflection of the gold against the matte metal signaled absolute financial dominance. The boundary lines of the estate were drawn in precious metals. A heavy Tiffany & Company silver trophy sits near the pristine grass of an exclusive Long Island polo match. Wealthy spectators in white linen suits observe the matches, completely insulated within their restricted social circles. These enclaves operated on strict bloodlines and religious affiliations, systematically locking out men like Otto Kahn. The perfectly manicured field represented a closed, impenetrable society. A red and white canvas flag snaps above the brass cup of a flawlessly manicured golf green. Barred from the local fairways, Kahn simply hired architects to build a completely private 18-hole course directly on his property. Groundskeepers meticulously clipped the grass by hand to ensure championship-level conditions. The private sporting ground proves that massive capital could replicate any withheld privilege. Mother-of-pearl opera glasses rest on the crimson silk velvet ledge of the director's box at the Metropolitan Opera. Kahn sat in the shadows, leveraging his vast wealth to fund and direct the highest levels of American arts and culture. While the Long Island elite rejected him, he single-handedly controlled the stage in Manhattan. Cultural patronage provided an alternative avenue to power. An antique silver menorah holding 9 unlit candles rests quietly on a dark oak side table. Tucked away in a corner of the massive walnut-paneled study, the object represented the exact Jewish heritage that caused Kahn's exclusion from the surrounding country clubs. A housemaid carefully dusted the intricate silver base. The religious artifact survived silently within the fortress of wealth. A massive copper stockpot bubbles furiously atop the black cast-iron du Parquet coal stove. Chefs utilized heavy canvas gloves and iron pokers to manage the extreme heat required to feed the estate's massive population. The brutal, greasy mechanics of the kitchen starkly contrasted with the refined Sèvres porcelain used in the dining room. High culinary art relied entirely on heavy industrial labor. A massive Sheffield silver serving tray sits half-polished on a green felt table. Silver stewards aggressively rubbed pink paste into the blackened, tarnished metal, fighting a continuous battle against oxidation. Maintaining the mirror-like shine of the estate's massive silver inventory required endless, repetitive manual labor in the windowless vault. The extreme luxury depended entirely on constant, unseen friction. 6 bottles of smuggled Scottish whiskey sit packed in straw inside a broken wooden crate falsely marked as farm equipment. Operating deep in the brick-vaulted cellars, butlers secured illegal alcohol imports by the light of kerosene lanterns. Kahn bypassed federal prohibition laws to ensure his lavish parties remained heavily supplied. The subterranean operation maintained a steady flow of illicit luxury. A gleaming chromed Wessenbrod broadhood ornament reflects the warm electric light spilling from the chateau doors. Chauffeurs in dark wool uniforms constantly buffed the flawless black enamel of the touring cars parked on the gravel courtyard. The massive vehicles served as highly visible, mobile extensions of Kahn's enormous wealth. Automotive perfection was strictly enforced by the dedicated staff. A beaded silk T-strap heel aggressively crushes a smoking cigarette but directly into the expensive oak parquet floor. Spilled champagne and dropped silk handkerchiefs littered the ballroom during Kahn's chaotic jazz age parties. The intense flash of the photographer's bolt captured a deliberate, wealthy disregard for the delicate architecture. The events actively rebelled against the quiet, conservative restraint of the WASP elite. Crisp white Egyptian cotton sheets are pulled tightly across an 18th-century antique canopy bed. Head housekeepers strictly inspected the immaculate, pale gray French guest rooms, maintaining absolute perfection for high society visitors who frequently boycotted Kahn's invitations. The pristine, unwrinkled silk bedspreads emphasized the cold, sterile reality of the boycotted estate. The luxury remained completely untouched. Over 100 identical Baccarat crystal champagne coupes lined the zinc-covered tables of the butler's pantry. Footmen worked in bright morning light, furiously polishing the massive inventory of glass required for a single, large-scale dinner event. The dizzying geometric rows of crystal highlighted the staggering volume of domestic labor required to execute Kahn's social ambitions. Every glass demanded flawless clarity. A master tailor carefully wraps a yellow measuring tape across the shoulders of Otto Kahn. Standing in a dressing room lined with dark mahogany wardrobes and dozens of silk neckties, the financier prepared his bespoke, tailored armor. The strict attention to charcoal wool suits and stiff white shirts ensured a flawless, impenetrable public image. Presentation was calculated down to the millimeter. A chaotic tangle of white paper tape spews furiously from a brass stock ticker machine under a glass dome. Telegraph operators scrambled to read the blurred black numbers as the financial markets collapsed in October 1929. The machine, positioned on a dark oak desk, delivered the catastrophic data directly into the Long Island estate. The endless paper trail documented the sudden evaporation of millions. A crumpled yellow Western Union telegram sits anchored by a heavy bronze paperweight on the mahogany desk. Kahn, wearing a loosened tie, buried his face in his hands beneath the harsh glare of a single brass desk lamp. The sudden destruction of the 1929 market crash penetrated the massive limestone walls, striking the core of the baker's empire. The printed words triggered immediate financial devastation. A pile of cold, dead greyish sits inside the colossal carved French limestone fireplace. A housemaid in a patched cotton dress kneels on the freezing marble floor, sweeping the debris with a small tin dustpan. The unlit hearth and discarded newspapers signaled the immediate, severe reduction in operating funds following the market crash. The grand house rapidly lost its warmth. A battered cardboard suitcase tied with twine rests heavily on the wet, muddy gravel of the service courtyard. Following mass dismissals, housemaids gripped cheap plastic handles, departing the property in plain, dark coats. The flat, overcast afternoon light captured the bleak reality of the unemployed domestic staff. The economic collapse severed their connection to the luxury they had meticulously maintained. A heavy, pale canvas dust sheet completely shrouds the massive ebony Steinway grand piano. Caretakers carrying rings of brass keys walk past the silenced instrument, actively shutting down large sections of the chateau to conserve resources. A dried, dead rose rests on the thick canvas, symbolizing the sudden end of the vibrant jazz age parties. The music room descended into prolonged, dusty silence. The sharp silver tip of an ebony walking cane plants firmly into the weed-choked white marble gravel. An aging Otto Kahn, wearing heavy dark trousers and polished Oxfords, walked the overgrown paths of his formal gardens. The low afternoon sun cast a distorted, elongated shadow of the isolated billionaire across the failing landscape. The man outlived the manicured perfection of his own creation. A heavy black leather medical bag sits open on a delicate Louis XV bedside table, revealing a glass syringe and amber bottles. A private nurse in a stark white uniform extinguishes the small brass reading lamp near the heavy walnut headboard. The dimming amber glow signals the final days of Otto Kahn within his massive, isolated fortress. The end arrived quietly in the dark. A thick black pencil violently crosses out items listed in a cheap paper auction catalog titled The Estate of Otto Kahn. Lawyers worked at scratched oak tables in the stripped library, systematically liquidating the massive collections of art and furniture to settle debts. The harsh morning light illuminated the brutal administrative dismantling of a lifetime of acquired wealth. The empire was sold piece by piece. Two moving men in heavy canvas overalls struggle under the immense weight of a rolled 17th-century hunting tapestry. Utilizing wooden dollies, workers physically stripped the cavernous grand hall of its historic art, leaving lighter, blank rectangles on the limestone walls. The dusty afternoon light silhouetted the man as they carried the soul of the chateau out the front doors. The architecture was hollowed out entirely. A heavy brass Yale padlock and thick, rusted iron chains secured the intricate black ironwork of the main gates. Local children in denim overalls peered through the bars at the empty, abandoned estate. The fading evening light cast the heavy metal lock in sharp relief, marking the official closure of the $11 million compound. The sprawling property transitioned into a massive, silent ghost town. A heavy, mud-caked black leather work boot steps forcefully onto the once flawless black and white checkerboard marble floor. Sanitation workers carrying rusted iron buckets tracked dried gray mud and crushed cigarette butts across the grand entrance hall. The harsh morning light highlighted the brutal intersection of utilitarian footwear and imported aristocratic stone. The delicate architecture suffered immediate defacement under the Union retreat. A polished brass eagle button gleams on the heavy gray wool uniform of a military cadet standing at strict attention. Drill instructors in white cotton gloves aggressively pointed at the chests of the teenagers occupying Kahn's former library. The sterile midday light emphasized the rigid, uncompromising discipline imposed by the Eastern Military Academy. The organic luxury of the estate was replaced by severe martial order. Complex white chalk equations cover a rolling green slate board placed directly over the gilded ballroom mirrors. Military teachers in drab olive uniforms utilized cheap wooden erasers, actively ignoring the rococo plasterwork surrounding them. The diffused afternoon light illuminated the smeared chalk dust settling on the historic floors. The grandest room in the house was reduced to a purely functional, institutional classroom. A discarded red Krylon spray paint can bleeds wet paint onto the shattered marble steps of the grand staircase. Teenage vandals wearing combat boots easily breached the abandoned ruins, attacking the intricate wrought iron balustrades. The eerie evening light exposed the violent, rapid destruction of the 1920s craftsmanship. Without security, the unprotected limestone walls became a massive canvas for unchecked urban decay. Smashed crystal pendants scatter across the soot-covered oak parquet. Urban explorers step through the debris of the formal dining room, navigating shattered glass and rusted iron crowbars. Decades of complete abandonment exposed the extreme fragility of the 1920s architecture. The imported materials simply disintegrated without massive, continuous capital to sustain them. Blistered leather reveals burnt paper pages resting on a charred oak shelf. Arson investigators utilized metal tweezers to analyze the catastrophic damage inside the two-story library. Over 100 intentional fires severely compromised the structural integrity of the chateau during the 1980s. The intellectual core of the estate was reduced to smoking charcoal. Dark green algae heavily coats the cracked geometric mosaic tiles of the indoor pool. Teenagers stood near the stagnant, rainwater-filled basin, surrounded by illegally dumped car tires beneath the smashed glass skylight. The failure of the climate control systems allowed absolute rot to consume the imported limestone walls. The luxurious Roman pavilion devolved into a hazardous swamp. A serpentine boxwood root violently shatters a heavy imported limestone retaining wall. Squatters occupied the ruins while untamed ivy and aggressive weeds completely choked the crushed white marble paths of the formal sunken gardens. Without groundskeepers, the meticulously engineered French landscape surrendered immediately to the Long Island woodlands. Nature aggressively reclaimed the property. A gold-plated fountain pen signs a thick stack of real estate documents. In 1984, developer Gary Melius acquired the devastated 109,000-square-foot ruins for $1.5 million. Utilizing a cheap folding table inside the debris-filled Grand Hall, he finalized the purchase that halted the total collapse of the Kahn estate. The largest private residential restoration in American history began instantly. A steel framing hammer strikes a galvanized nail through a pristine dark gray Vermont slate tile. Roofers operated high on the steep mansard scaffolding, methodically replacing the entire 1.5-acre roof structure. Securing the massive building envelope against further water damage required immediate, intensive manual labor. The physical resurrection of the chateau demanded industrial-scale intervention. Master plasterers sculpt fresh floral rosettes against the ceiling lath of the grand ballroom. Wearing paper masks and utilizing silicone molds, artisans painstakingly recreated the destroyed Rococo geometry. The restoration demanded highly specialized historical techniques to replace the intricate plasterwork lost to decades of severe water damage. The delicate architectural skin was surgically rebuilt. A sharp steel gouge cuts deeply into a massive slab of unstained pale oak. Master carpenters referenced original Delano and Aldridge shop drawings to completely reconstruct the two-story library. The process generated thick wood shavings as workers replicated the intricate Corinthian capitals destroyed by the 1980 arson fires. Fresh timber slowly erased the scars of extreme vandalism. A heavy aluminum landscaping rake pulls perfect, parallel grooves through brand-new white crushed limestone. Foreman eliminated the military-era asphalt, actively restoring the 1920s arrival sequence in the massive front courtyard. The intense physical labor required to level the stones returned absolute, aristocratic order to the exterior approach. The property was prepped for the return of modern wealth. A flawless crystal teardrop pendant hangs suspended by a delicate brass wire. Electricians wiped the final dust from the massive 24-arm reproduction chandelier, restoring brilliant incandescent light to the formal dining room. The explosive refraction signaled the triumphant return of high-end luxury to the previously ruined space. The dark era of Oheka Castle was officially terminated. A modern Mercedes-Benz parks near the limestone steps of the active arrival courtyard. Today, valets manage brass luggage carts for a highly diverse clientele, completely dismantling the strict, exclusionary parameters of the 1920s White Anglo-Saxon Protestant elite. The historic white gravel now supports an inclusive, global luxury market. Capital and access have been entirely redefined. Sleek computer monitors sit on a dark mahogany reception desk inside the cavernous entrance hall. Hotel concierges issue electronic keycards on the same checkerboard marble floor where Kahn's footmen once stood. The 109,000 square foot fortress now operates as a high-volume commercial hospitality venue. The architecture leverages its massive scale to generate continuous modern revenue. A young businesswoman scrolls on a smartphone while seated on a cognac leather Chesterfield sofa. The rebuilt oak-paneled library provides a highly connected, intellectual lounge for modern hotel guests. The space mimics Kahn's original 1920s design while functioning as an active hub for contemporary corporate travelers. The historic wood paneling seamlessly integrates with digital technology. Thousands of white orchids cover an acrylic chuppah centered in the geometric boxwood hedges. Floral designers execute massive modern Jewish weddings directly within the formal sunken gardens. This prominent celebration of Jewish heritage on the estate stands as a definitive, monumental victory over the local country clubs that originally rejected Otto Kahn. The architecture finally serves its builder's lineage. An Indian groom wearing a red silk sherwani arrives on horseback against the backdrop of the French limestone facade. Joyous wedding guests in bright saris fill the grand courtyard, showcasing a spectacular display of modern diversity. Kahn's fortress, built in response to severe ethnic exclusion, now thrives by actively hosting global cultural celebrations. The estate embraces what the 1920s elite feared. A makeup artist prepares a modern bride inside the French grey-paneled bridal suite. Discarded styling tools and champagne flutes clutter the massive mahogany king bed. The meticulously restored guest rooms generate significant capital by providing high-fashion preparation spaces for luxury events. Modern romance effectively underwrites the multi-million-dollar preservation of the historic architecture. A groom wearing a crisp white tuxedo shirt takes a shot on the antique Brunswick mahogany pool table. The restored dark oak billiard room functions as an exclusive, relaxed gathering space prior to massive evening events. The heavy wainscoting and focused brass lighting maintain the masculine 1920s atmosphere while serving contemporary hospitality demands. Corporate executives raise crystal champagne glasses under the historic chandeliers of the Grand Ballroom. Modern amber LED uplighting washes the rococo plaster walls during a massive, diverse charity gala. The room operates with the exact high-end efficiency Otto Kahn originally demanded, yet hosts a completely integrated society. The physical space succeeded in outlasting the social prejudices of its era. Steel culinary tweezers place a tiny green microherb onto a thick cut of Wagyu beef. Executive chefs operate under intense halogen expediting lamps to deliver world-class gastronomy. The modern restaurant infrastructure hidden within the historic walls rivals major metropolitan dining establishments. The estate maintains its legacy of culinary supremacy through high-volume, precise modern cooking. A modern mixologist pours vermouth over ice behind a heavily veined white quartzite bar. A corner of the historic library now houses an ultra-exclusive cocktail lounge, replacing antique books with illuminated premium liquor bottles. The integration of hidden LED lighting in modern mixology creates a sophisticated nightlife environment directly within the 1919 architecture. A white cinematic drone hovers above the manicured grass of the sprawling front lawn. Operators utilize carbon fiber propellers and high-definition gimbals to capture the massive scale of the fully restored chateau for global media. The intersection of modern aerial technology and 1919 French Renaissance architecture projects Kahn's legacy instantly across the world. An 18-kilowatt cinematic light blasts artificial moonlight across the limestone facade. Film grips push heavy diffusion frames over the white gravel courtyard, utilizing the pristine estate as a highly sought-after Hollywood filming location. The monumental architecture serves as a lucrative, flexible set for modern media production. The property continuously monetizes its sheer physical scale. Diverse tourists read a modern glossy placard positioned on the sweeping black and white marble floor. Historic tour guides gesture toward the intricate wrought iron grand staircase, actively teaching the public about Kahn's financial empire and his subsequent social rejection. The once hyper-private, heavily guarded fortress now operates as an educational monument accessible to anyone. A massive gold-leaf-framed oil portrait of Otto Kahn watches over a sleek modern console table. A passing hotel guest blurs in motion beneath the thick oil paint of the financier's face. The strategic placement of the portrait ensures that the man who financed the $11 million retaliation remains an active, visible presence within the thriving modern business. A female golfer swings an oversized titanium driver on the flawless emerald fairway. The private 18-hole golf course, originally carved from the woodlands because Kahn was barred from local fairways, now operates for a diverse modern clientele. The manicured grass stands as a permanent, 428-acre physical counteroffensive against the exclusionary practices of the past. Smooth black basalt hot stones rest on a bamboo table beside a heavy wooden massage bed. The estate features an ultra-luxurious, modern spa facility built directly into the historic footprint. Therapists operate in soft, taupe-painted rooms, offering advanced wellness treatments that rival global five-star resorts. The property continuously adapts to fulfill contemporary demands for premium relaxation. Modern digital screens glow on a row of black stationary bikes set against historic tall windows. Hotel guests utilize sleek urethane dumbbells and high-tech cardiovascular equipment inside the repurposed, sunlit fitness center. The integration of cutting-edge exercise mechanics within the 1920s architecture highlights the complete modernization of the estate's internal amenities. A modern housekeeper checks a digital tablet beside a stainless steel cart stocked with fresh cotton towels. The invisible army of hotel staff maintains the plush gray corridors and 127 rooms with exact, quiet efficiency. Flawless midday LED lighting exposes the spotless perfection required to sustain the massive hospitality operation. The labor is highly organized and entirely digital. A bright orange robotic lawnmower silently cuts the grass near the geometric boxwood hedges. Groundskeepers utilize heavy-duty electric leaf blowers and incredibly sharp titanium shears to maintain the strict, mathematical precision of the formal sunken gardens. Modern landscaping technology is deployed daily to defend the strict architectural order against the encroaching Long Island woodlands. Waiters carry silver trays of artisan cocktails past a roaring modern gas fire pit. The sprawling stone terrace features dozens of round dining tables set with crystal glassware under the glowing French limestone facade. The transition to sunset provides a highly lucrative, spectacular outdoor dining experience, fully utilizing the massive exterior footprint of the chateau. A yellowed 1914 Delano and Aldrich architectural blueprint sits preserved behind museum glass in a heavy black modern frame. A guest points at the intricate white lines detailing the 109,000-square-foot floor plan. This carefully displayed document bridges the century between the original monumental construction and the modern hotel operation, verifying the sheer scale of the engineering. A heavy black charging cable connects a sleek white electric sports car to a modern silver pedestal. Valets polish the aerodynamic curves of the futuristic vehicle parked on the historic white gravel courtyard. The seamless installation of high-voltage infrastructure into the 1919 architecture proves the estate's capacity to evolve and accommodate the absolute leading edge of modern transportation. Powerful jets of crystal-clear water shoot from polished brass nozzles inside the restored limestone fountain. The harsh midday sun freezes the motion of the water droplets, creating tiny rainbows above the rippling basin. A small drone films the hydraulic display, capturing the massive infusion of movement and life returning to the center of the formal gardens. A master pastry chef applies edible silver dust to sugar roses on a 5-tier fondant wedding cake. Operating under intense, daylight-balanced LED ceiling panels, the highly sterile modern pastry kitchen executes the microscopic culinary detail work required for massive luxury events. The estate supports a massive internal food production system to maintain its hospitality dominance. A security officer in a black tactical uniform monitors 6 high-definition digital camera feeds. Operating from a highly secure, windowless subterranean control room, the staff tracks the perimeter, gates, and internal hallways 24 hours a day. The advanced digital surveillance network provides an invisible, impenetrable layer of modern protection over the $11 million historic investment. A modern bride in a voluminous couture ball gown walks slowly down the sweeping wrought iron grand staircase. The massive skylight backlights her veil, flooding the black and white marble floor with diffused midday light. The chateau functions as the ultimate architectural theater, leveraging its colossal scale to provide highly emotional, intensely visual moments for a premium modern market. Brilliant gold and purple fireworks explode violently above the dark, steep slate roof of the chateau. Wedding guests on the stone terrace raise smartphones to record the massive pyrotechnic display. The warm architectural uplighting on the limestone facade anchors a scene of absolute, unrestrained modern celebration. The estate operates as a monument to complete, visible triumph. A heavy rose-gold modern chronograph watch catches the light next to a crystal rocks glass filled with premium bourbon. The dark mahogany tables of the cocktail lounge support the extreme, concentrated wealth that currently flows through the property. The brushed gold timepiece and tailored gray suit emphasize the precise, high-end demographic the restored chateau now commands. 2 young children run wildly across the sprawling, perfectly manicured green lawn. A bright yellow frisbee and a designer picnic blanket sit abandoned on the grass. Completely unburdened by the heavy, exclusionary history of the 1920s Billionaire, the modern estate absorbs the joyful, chaotic energy of contemporary families. The rigid fortress has been successfully softened. Golden hour light hits the ornate French limestone carving around a tall arched window at a severe, low angle. The pristine stone floral swags designed by Delano and Aldrich glow intensely in the late evening sun. A hotel manager passes quickly behind the window glass. The perfectly restored architecture stands as a 3-dimensional masterpiece of historic preservation. A modern silver coin-operated binocular stand points toward the misty Long Island Valley from the highest stone terrace. In the extreme distance, the roofline of the old Huntington Country Club is barely visible. A modern tourist leans against the balustrade, looking at a smartphone, completely ignoring the faded, insignificant enclave that originally rejected Otto Kahn. A white-gloved security hand rests below the massive intertwined letters OHK forged into the black iron entrance gates. Fresh 24-karat gold leaf blazes under the direct midday sun, making the Jewish baker's monogram inescapable. The heavy ironwork stands permanently at the threshold, ensuring Kahn's name and legacy outlive the closed societies that attempted to erase him. A diverse young couple leans against a carved limestone balustrade on a private upper balcony. An open bottle of Napa Valley red wine sits on a modern aluminum table as they look out over the darkening formal gardens. The deep cobalt twilight contrasts with the warm amber light of the suite, confirming the property's success as a modern luxury destination. The completely empty, silent grand ballroom waits flawlessly for the next event. The polished oak parquet floor, gilded mirrors, and massive crystal chandeliers exist in a state of breathtaking, sterile perfection. A solitary floor manager holding a digital tablet stands dwarfed by the colossal volume of the historic space. The architecture commands absolute, triumphant silence. A diverse board of directors reviews digital presentations on open laptops around the 20-foot polished walnut conference table. The historic paneled room, now equipped with modern telecommunications, hosts high-level corporate strategy sessions. Kahn's legacy of immense financial power continues, but the operations have evolved from solitary exclusion to completely integrated, modern corporate inclusion. A diverse team of chefs in white coats moves with frantic precision inside the blindingly bright stainless steel commercial kitchen. Heavy steel pans toss vegetables over firing gas ranges as expediters load identical white plates for a massive evening service. The intense heat and pressure mirror the extreme operational demands required to sustain the estate's modern hospitality empire. Thousands of wine bottles rest in sleek black metal racks beneath the historic vaulted brick ceiling of the subterranean cellar. The spotlessly clean, completely empty room is bathed in warm amber LED light. A maintenance cart sits parked in the distance. The underground vault endures as a quiet, highly organized temple dedicated to absolute modern luxury. The massive French limestone facade dominates a wide view of the pristine white gravel courtyard. A few modern luxury cars park neatly near the entrance, providing scale to the awe-inspiring, symmetrical architecture. The crisp afternoon sunlight casts shock shadows, cementing the immense physical mass of the chateau. Kahn's $11 million architectural revenge stands permanent and irrefutable. Warm electric light blazes from every single tall arched window of the 127-room mansion against a darkening purple twilight sky. High-end architectural uplighting perfectly washes the exterior limestone walls. A solitary security guard patrols the glowing perimeter. The fully alive, triumphant estate completely overrides the darkness of its abandoned past, operating at peak capacity. A massive aerial view captures the entire Oheka Castle estate from directly above. The sprawling French chateau roof, the precise geometric patterns of the sunken gardens, and the emerald golf course stand completely victorious. The 109,000-square-foot fortress was built because they wouldn't let him in. Today, Otto Kahn's masterpiece stands as the greatest house on Long Island, and its doors are open to everyone.